All right, I'm recording.
Recording?
Yep.
All right.
Let's go. I'm going to turn on my screen share. Dang it, I forgot to do that.
Want to stop again and start over?
No.
All right, it's 1 o'clock. It's August 24th, 2019. We're here at the Blockyard in Charleston, South Carolina. And we started recording. And
What's your name?
My name is Dominic.
I'm Brett.
This is Brett. And we have Russell here.
Russell's here. A couple people are going to be late.
This class is class number 2 on our free JavaScript series. And last week we basically had a class on basic JavaScript and covered some Chrome developer tools, a little bit of setup of the environment with Visual Studio Code, and some really basic like JavaScript lines. So we're going to continue that with today we're going to start project number 1 from the Treehouse course. And so I am being transparent. We're using the Treehouse projects, and basically there's 10 projects on this course, and this is the first one. But before we get to the actual project, we're going to do a couple warm-ups. And in the process of actually executing the code, we're going to explain what's going on. So we're using the type of theory that from Gordon Zhu with his watching code practical JavaScript, that the best way really to learn JavaScript is practical application of a real project, and not just like, you know, doing math and like square roots of things that you're really not going to use. So I really believe in practical application. And you're going to pick up the things that you need as you see them. And the more that you see things, then the more you'll be familiar, and eventually you'll just start picking up things. In other words, I think it's better this way rather than explaining to you, for example, looking at this HTML file and just explaining each and every tag and every element and what every element does and things like that. I just think it's, we'll come across what we need to when we need it. Because part of learning code and being a good programmer is actually learning how to ignore things. You actually become expert at knowing what to ignore. It's really important actually, because otherwise you'll get so much time wasted reading things that are irrelevant to you.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I wasn't listening.
You have to be good at ignoring things.
Oh, I got that down.
So, for example, if you look at something like MDN documents, so if you don't know it, then we'll look at it real quick. MDN means Mozilla Developer Network. And if you look at something like the map array, so you really have to understand like how to read the documentation, and there really is no official documentation with JavaScript. So here we are diving in. This is it. This is Mozilla Developer Network, but they happen to be accepted by default in the community as like the most authoritative resource on coding JavaScript. But there's really no official like how do you do. There's the official like what's called standard, or the people in the board who actually makes JavaScript and makes decisions, and that is way too thick. Only like people major in computer science can read that type of thing, or unless you're really, really bored and you can read it, or unless you're really, really interested and you really, really want to go deep into it. It's like very, very thick. Other than that, there's really no official documentation on how to use JavaScript other than this. So you get used to reading this documentation, and you also get used to ignoring certain parts of what you need and what you don't need. And you have to actually be discerning to know what you need and what you don't need. So you wouldn't sit here and read each and every paragraph, but you would read it very carefully. But let me tell you this, don't read something unless you absolutely know what you are reading. And this is again like from Gordon.
Pocket.
He's like, the point is that with every single line of code, you should understand every line of code. And if you don't, then you need to go back and learn what that line means and figure it out. Same with reading the docs. When you're reading something, you should understand clearly everything and don't just skim it. If you don't understand it, then you need to take a step back and read some other basic. The other resource that's very common is W3 Schools. It's also, it's not really the official W3 consortium site, but it's kind of like it, I guess, or they use the W3 in their name, and it's very popular. So let's go jump into some code, and we're going to start doing some like warm-ups first before we actually do the project. Hold on one second. Let me get maybe a better chair since nobody's going to be here. All right. So again, we're in Visual Studio Code, but I don't really want to focus on the work environment in Visual Studio Code too much right now. Although, if that's what people want, we can do that. Do you need a refresher on Visual Studio Code? How to use it? How to open it? Okay.
Did you watch all of them?
Most of the way through, I didn't get 100% down.
I'm on. Yeah, I'm just on Booleans myself. You passed Booleans already?
And at the section 9, but I need to go back.
Dang.
I need to go back. I thought it all had to be done by today, so.
It did, but I did. It's a lot more than I thought it was.
There's a lot I didn't understand that I need to go back and watch.
It was just to give you an overview. So for our listeners, he's talking about our homework assignment was to just go through practical JavaScript on watchandcode.com. It's a free course, and it's a great way to watch some 5-minute video clips if you go the whole way through to give you a good overview. All right, so we're starting with some warm-ups.
But that's not okay, back to JavaScript, practical JavaScript. It's best not to put a time frame on yourself regarding these things. And it's way too much to do in 1 week, and for one thing. And it's better just to forget about time and forget about comparing yourself to others. And just, it's more important to really understand everything clearly. So if you're in Visual Studio Code, then we can start like this, and you can create a, go to File, and do, you would go to like open a folder. If you press this little icon on the left, open folder, and you can open up like any blank folder or your previous folder from last week.
By the way, I wanted to mention to the listeners that, or the viewers, you're viewing my screen, you're not viewing Dominic's, the instructor. That way you have a perspective of what a student, the experience of a student sitting in the classroom. It's kind of a different angle at, in contrast to the other YouTube videos that are out there. It's usually the instructor's screen. So you're now looking at my screen. All right, so Dominic, say again, go to File and do what?
Just open a new, not file actually, click this icon and you should see something that says Open Folder.
I don't have it. Yeah, okay.
You see Open Folder?
Yep.
And basically, however you get there, you would open a new folder so that you can create a new file. Because once you have a folder open, you can hover over it, the name of the folder, and you click this icon. Or you can right-click in this little window area.
Make a new one that way.
If you right-click in that window, you can do New File. And here we'll call it project 1. No, we'll just call it warm-ups. And the name of I think I'm going to name the file.
I don't see where it says, when you right click, you can do a new file. Can you make your screen larger, please?
Yeah. So,
open editors, Day2, warm up. Oh, you already made the folder and called it Day2?
yeah.
Okay,
And when I right click inside of the Day2 folder,
I got you.
then I can, it says new file, new folder.
Day2.
So-
I got you. So
All
there
right.
it is. So then that opens up like that.
So,
And then he's talking about right clicking right here. And what'd you name that file?
warm up.
Warm up? Okay. Got it. Warm up dot what? I can't read your screen.
.js. All right, so this is crazy because this is way too big for me, but yet I need to, my screen is mirroring this one exactly
Really?
as far as when I zoom in, because it's the same app, I guess. And this is way too big for
Oh,
me.
really? Okay.
But let's see. I'll try to make it as big as I can.
Don't worry about
All
it.
right,
then.
so let's just start into this. It's a little bit,
Oh, he put a dash in there.
some warm-ups here. So,
That's what he did. All right, so we're gonna warm up. I can count to 10.
what do you mean?
I'm just kidding around. Sorry.
All right, so this has a lot of HTML in it, though. It would have been better if I sent you this this HTML already, because it has a lot. Let's just do this one instead. It has a little bit less than. 1 second. All right. So that's, we can start with this. We haven't even seen the HTML file. We don't even have an HTML file here yet. So what we need to do is create one more file. Click the plus icon. And just create a file called index.html. All right. And inside of that file, we need to, with Visual Studio Code, you can just start typing HTML and then choose the HTML:5, and Emmet will expand everything that we need to create a HTML file. It will automatically insert all the necessary code that the browser needs in order to read this file. So I'll do it one more time. So again, we created index.html file, and then you just type HTML and choose HTML:5. And it should expand. And inside of the body, wait. So the title, we'll put a title. For the title, we'll call this conditional string. So you see the title. This is, so again, we can review real quick. The word title here is called a tag. So there's an opening tag, and then there's a closing tag, and the closing tag has this backslash in front of it. So it's an open and a closing tag, but the entire line 7 is called an element, HTML element. So in other words, a tag and everything inside the tag itself is the element. All right, so this is important because we're going to target the element. When you talk about JavaScript, we start talking about targeting elements. So that's why that's important. So the title here, we call it conditional string, because we're going to write some conditionals, like an if statement. All right, that's just the title right here. And we're going to create selector, an ID with the print. Let's see here. This is going to be cool. So we're going to go over here and inside the body. Now make sure you're inside the body, not the head. Because if you write this in the head, it won't display itself on the screen. Everything that is displayed, that's written in the body, will be displayed on the screen. That's why we need to write this code in the body. So we're going to write a form. So in HTML, there's actually a form tag. So you write form, you just start typing form, and if we press enter, it will automatically expand to a form opening tag with an action attribute. And the action attribute is double quotes. It has to be double quotes in HTML.
Mine didn't pop up with an action attribute.
Because action always has to be required with a form. You always have to have action, but for now we're not sending it anywhere to a database or anywhere, so we just put a pound sign for now, which is when you're coding, you can just do that for now. It means it goes nowhere. It goes to the home page. It doesn't go anywhere else other than where you are right then at that moment, actually. So every form element requires an action attribute. So that's why it automatically did that. But there's also other attributes inside of this form. We'll do method as an attribute. And we're going to call it get. So we can go over that later at some point, but it's part of JavaScript telling the form what do you want to do with this form.
So is this action, is this HTML or is this JavaScript?
That's HTML attribute, but it's telling, it's kind of telling JavaScript, what you want that form to do. But it is HTML attribute.
Okay.
Then we need an ID, and we're going to call this form. And an ID is, you can only have one ID called form per page. You can have more than one, but ideally you just need one ID for that name. Like, you can have as many IDs as you want on the page, but they should all have unique names. So this ID, then the value of that ID attribute is form. So there's no other attribute or key value pair of ID form on the page. So we're going to call that form, and we're going to give it a class of form as well. So that's class of form, and then we'll press enter to move this down. The closing tag of form, and inside of here will be so the form tags, you don't actually see those, but they're enclosing. You can put input and buttons and radio buttons all inside of this, but it's all encapsulated inside of a form tags. So here we're going to put an input. So if you type input, there's different types. And we're going to do a button. So we're going to do a button. Input type equals button. Value equals print. We're going to give it an ID of print and a class of print control button. And then you save it.
What's the class doing?
Class and ID actually both are used in CSS to give it some style. These are CSS selectors. But we can also target HTML elements using the ID class. Okay. You can also use the tag itself, like the button tag, or type. So you can actually target these elements in JavaScript using the type, value, ID, or class. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go over to the JavaScript real quick, and we're going to do, so jump over to the warmup.js.
Always save.
Always save. And we're going to link to that HTML. We have to go back to it in a minute to actually link the JavaScript file to the HTML file, but we'll do that in a minute. We're just going to create a variable here called const print equals. And here what we're trying to do is grab the element on the HTML page with an ID of print. And the way you do that is first we're going to search the entire document. And that's the word keyword. It's a keyword in JavaScript document. And then dot. And there's a lot of methods on this document object. And such as query selector and get element by ID. And as a matter of fact, Visual Studio Code right here is just like, has a huge list. And so here's a couple of them. Get element by ID, by class name, by name, by tag name. Tag name would be like H1 or H2 or input as a tag name or form. But what we're going to do is a query selector. So if you scrolled all the way down, you'll see it down here. Query selector and query selector all. So we're just going to do query selector. So you can just start typing query selector. And there's a couple different ways of doing that. You could do it this way, like query selector, and then put quotes, and then put the pound signs, telling it, well, okay, query selector means you can target a class, an ID, a value, or you're just querying different selectors that are on the page.
How are you getting these? Oh, the explanations that are underneath.
Yeah, I just hover over it.
You just hover over it.
And
okay.
so you do quotes, and then the pound sign is telling us we want to query an ID. So in JavaScript, when you're communicating to, and you want to target an element, an element on an HTML page that has an ID, you use the pound sign. All right. If you want to target a class, you use a period before the word. So you would say period and then print. That was the name of our class. Or you can do pound, which was the name of our ID. Pound print. Okay?
What's the little light bulb for?
I don't know. You hover over it, it says something.
Mine doesn't have a light bulb.
Yeah, maybe it's a plugin I have. Don't get distracted by these things.
Yes, sir.
What we're going to do real quick, we haven't even looked at the HTML, but we got to go back over to it. We got to jump back over to the index.html page and scroll down to the bottom after the closing body tag, but before the closing HTML. Do I sound condescending?
No.
No? I don't want to sound that way.
No, you sound great, like a teacher. Keep going.
Okay. Here?
All right. Somebody, Russell didn't get this part right. Here he's asking.
If you don't have the other stuff, it's cool, but at least you have the ID. It's the most important thing. So there's actually two different things here. There's the input, and I'll put a space. There's the form tag, and then there's the form closing tag. And inside of the form closing tag is the input element. And by the way, this is one of those elements that doesn't have a closing tag, if you noticed. This and other elements like the image tag, they don't have a closing tag. They're just, I forgot the name of it, so I guess it's a non-closing element. So if you don't have, make sure you have the input element, but if you don't have the other stuff, it's cool. As long as you have the ID, it's the most important thing. So just have the ID, then you're good. And so after the closing body tag, but before the closing HTML tag, you're going to do script :source. So script is an open closing tag. This is also an element. So we did this last week, so you remember what would we type here?
I don't remember.
Well, we want to tell HTML, hey, I got a JavaScript file somewhere here. Do you know where it is? Yeah, no, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you where it is.
ID?
I'm going to tell you the name of the file. Warm
up. Warm hyphen up.
.js.
Oh, I got you.
So I just put the name of the file here because it happens to be in the same directory. If it was in a different directory, you would have to have like a backslash and a dot and a backslash depending on where it is. We go over that later, but just for now, it's in the same directory. You just have to put the name of, hi, welcome.
Somebody's late.
Better late than never.
Nice to see you, Mark.
Nice to see you, Mark.
You're being recorded.
So,
nice shirt.
everything you can say and will be recorded. They may or may not be used against you. All right. So you're telling the HTML, hey, I have a JavaScript. I'm going to tell you the name of it, and I'm also going to tell you where it is. But it's smart enough to know that if I don't put a dot and a hyphen, a dot and a backslash, then it knows and it's in the same directory as where I am. Yeah. All right. So we've done a lot of work. We haven't looked at the file yet. So hover over Visual Studio Code, and you right-click, and there's a little plugin you can get for this that says Open in Browser. But if you don't have that, then you click Reveal in Finder. So right-click on it, Reveal in Finder, and then open this file. And by default, it should open in your browser. If it doesn't, then right-click on it and do Open With, and choose a browser. All right?
All I got was a print button.
Yes. And we have no CSS. So see what it looks like. There's a very tiny print button at the top.
Yeah.
All right. So we
Did you
can,
get it?
if you want, we can do some CSS, but it's not really important. All right. So here's our web page that we've created.
What happened?
It has this.
Russell has a problem.
Just right-click on it. You mean to open it in the browser? Right-click on it, Reveal in Finder, and then open it with your browser. For me, default, if I just open this, it's going to open in the browser, and it should be default for you, although it's going to open in your default browser. So, excuse me. Now, let's open your browser. Just open it.
Let me see. Oh, he has Linux. No, don't open it in terminal. Where's it saved at? is what he's saying. Hold on. I'll help you. Open containing folder if you're on Linux, and then there it is right there. So if you're on a Mac, it's going to be open in Finder. If you have Linux, like Russell here has, you want to do open in container.
Open in container?
Yeah, I think that's what it said. Hold on.
All right.
Yeah, open containing folder if you have Linux is what you want to use. So where'd it go? It should be in your browser. There it is. Yep. Good job.
Now you're in Chrome. For me, the shortcut is Command Option I, and I open up the developer tools. And it happens to open up on the side for me now. The shortcut, again, Command Option I. We're going to open up developer tools. If you don't know the shortcut, then go up to the 3 little dots at the top right in Chrome, and then go to More Tools, and then Developer Tools. Or you could just right-click on it and just go to Inspect, and then it will open up.
Just inspect.
But it will open up to the Elements tab. In that case, you have to go over to the Console tab and make sure that we're on the Console tab. Okay.
All right. What's up, Mark? What you need?
Oh, I was just trying to pull up this. I don't know what it's described.
What page?
So
Well, you have to. The code we wrote is right here.
So now what we're going to do, when we click that button,
That's
we're
the
going to make it do something. And that's what JavaScript's all about. In the beginning, back in the turn of the century, so the first decade, JavaScript is usually used just for like button clicks and like animations and like little fun things to make the page a little bit more interactive. Although now it's become like
That's it.
such a powerful language. You know, you can get an entry-level position between $40,000 and $60,000, and within a few years you can be making 80. And a few years after that, you can be making over 100 or so. So powerful. Because once you learn JavaScript, not just JavaScript, obviously you'll be learning other languages, but it's like the gateway now for many people to get into coding.
Before, didn't you?
Okay, because it's so
that's
easy.
still
Like
on
we
here.
said
Yeah,
last time,
just go up to
all you need is a
search.
browser for it to work. You don't need this
Type
IDE
Studio.
like other languages where you have to compile and then
There it is.
run it and all this stuff.
Just click on
You just
it.
need a browser to make it happen, to make it work, and you can see the results immediately.
There you
Which is
go.
why it's why I
now,
realize it's
with
why I
all
like
this
it so
code,
much.
I
It's
mean,
like, hey, you
That's
know you
too much to
fail
get caught up on.
or you know you succeed like immediately. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this print. Again, print is a variable.
All
All
right.
right, print is a variable that we declared on line 1, and we're going to. And in all of JavaScript, everything technically is an object. So this is kind of like a method on this object called add event listener. And this is all vanilla, okay? You get all types of frameworks that help you do this, but like jQuery, and jQuery is so hugely popular, and it was so big that it actually had an influence on JavaScript itself. Because of the
What is jQuery?
it's a framework from like 2008 that became super, super popular for many, many years, and it still is around today, and it's still popular, but there's some debate on whether or not it's used as much. But it's used probably in, who knows, 40, 50, 60% of all websites that use JavaScript. And it was so influential that it actually helped change the language itself. Because now a lot of the things are built into it that it tried to supplement because it was missing, and so it was a framework on JavaScript to kind of make it easier for developers. A framework just means a bunch of JavaScript in the background that you never touch, that it makes it short, and you get shortcuts to do things and tricks. But in the background, the actual framework is thousands and thousands or millions lines of code. Yeah, so a library framework. I think it's kind of interchangeable. So we're going to do dot add event listener. So dot add. It's not coming up. I just type the whole thing. Dot add event listener. And then we do open closing parentheses, and then the quotes, because this takes two arguments. And the first one is, well, what do you want it to do? So there's a button, and the button is always listening. All right, now we're going to tell the button to always listen for something. And there's a bunch of them. On mouse over, like if you mouse your mouse over the button, for example, you can make it do something. Or if you mouse it out, or click the button. Usually it's these like click, mouse over, mouse out, but there's a bunch more. So with the button, we're just going to do when the button is clicked, all right, click, and then comma after the quotation mark. So when the button's clicked, do this. I'm going to tell it what to do. And we're going to use arrow function. And so this here is a function. So this, starting with this other open closing parentheses, and then the arrow, which is an equal sign, and then the greater than sign, and then you put two open closing curly braces.
Why does yours turn purple?
I have probably some plugin that formats everything. It's actually, yeah, it's really pretty because it makes things, it adds color to every new thing so you can kind of distinguish. But don't worry about that, don't let it distract you. Inside of these curly braces, we're going to say what happens when you click it. So in the beginning, as we're learning code, we're going to use console log to test everything and make sure your programming is working as intended. So it's kind of a habit, but later on, as you get more advanced, there's other ways to make sure that things are happening. So we're going to do console.log. And then inside of quotes, you put text, a string. In JavaScript, we call text strings. So inside of the quotes, put strings. If we save it, we go back to Chrome and refresh. If we click the button, we should see this button was clicked. Everybody there?
He's not caught up yet, but
All you need is the HTML.
yeah, it's all
You just need the HTML page, then all you need is a button there. You don't need the other form or all the ID and all that. All you really need is a button with an ID,
He has a button.
and you target the ID. Does it work?
This goes in the.
So print dot add event listener, and then click, comma has to be there, and then this arrow function, and then at the end you have semicolon, closing parentheses, closing curly brace,
where you want
and
to
inside
save
you
it.
have console.log.
Open it. Then we'll. Alright, so there's day 2. You want to create a new file. And then
It's not. Do you have, so it's just 5 lines of code now. So number one, did you link on the HTML page? Are you sure you have it linking to the correct name of your file? Yeah.
keep going if you want. I'm just getting him caught up. Unless Russell's having.
Are we live streaming?
It's not live stream, though.
Okay.
I'm just recording it. So I'll edit some of this out
All right.
later. I'm recording my screen, and I'm recording my voice. And he's recording his voice. And I'm going to link them together.
Add event listener. What line? And then what line? No. 3. So go to line 3. Let me see. Line 3. I have warmup.js. Probably just misspelled listener. See? Listen. Yeah. But that's the good use of the console. It's telling you exactly where the error is. So that's good that you looked at the console, you saw where the error is. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Now does it work? Is there another error telling you something else?
Yeah, it's still
Okay. Good? Yay. See, it's just a misspelling. Human error, not computer error. Yeah.
Why is the form red? It means that something's wrong.
All right, let me see your error. Read the error for me.
Well, no, his form is red. Right here for read.
You don't have a
That's in form, so you need a start form.
the opening form tag.
It's right there, right?
Yeah, form and slash form. Maybe there's a close bracket.
You can, yeah, just
No, I need
close
to
the
close
input.
that. Oh, there we go.
All right.
There we go. So then you need script.
Equals src, the source. Equals
Warm up JS. That points to the JS file.
yeah, close bracket.
Script. Then you save. Now we gotta do your JavaScript code. Yeah, but it was wrong. It was you put it in the HTML file,
Got it.
so it's gone now.
You could put in an HTML file if you wanted.
Can you paste?
No, because I deleted it.
Oh, from the other piece. Oh, you deleted it.
I deleted that. Well, yeah, because you needed to make a new file. Query. Select door. Right. Okay. Colon. Add event. This.
So, bracket. Single quote.
All right, so then to do it,
They're close brackets.
yeah.
Close curly brace. Close non-brace. Semicolon. Okay. Save.
That ain't right. Something's wrong. Right here. Add event listener. Click. Oh. then to get it to play, to check it, you have to open the file, right click on it, reveal in Finder. There it is.
All right. So we had that first button, and we actually cover a lot there, just in
Hold
a
What's it supposed
few
to
lines
do?
of code.
In the event there's
Oh, when
Yeah,
you
you
open
can't-
up the console and you click it, you'll see this.
Oh, you gotta open console log.
Yeah.
So just go here, right click, inspect element, console.
All right. So now what we're going to do
Button was
next?
So it didn't work. I don't know. I don't know. All right, let me get caught up now. Now I'm
First,
behind.
let's make some comments on our code. So we practice good coding practices.
I don't like it on the side.
You do 2 backslashes to make a comment, right? And then you say declare or assign
Yeah.
button to variable.
Under index.
And here we when button is when button is clicked, do this. All right, so we're just adding some comments to our code, and what we're going to do now is create one more variable, and this is just something you can ignore real quick. We're not going to go too deep into it. We're going to create a variable that stores a random character. Now, so you can write comments before or after you write the code. So we just wrote the code, then we went back and put comments. That's a good practice. Or you can write with something like pseudocode, which is just like write text of what you want to do and then do it. So we're going to create this variable called my char, and we're just going to call it create ran char object. Create random character object. And then we're going to do console.log my char. And then go back to the is not defined. Create ran char object. I'm sorry. Oh. We're going to do maybe use strict. Maybe that's what we'll have here. So let me see here.
It's not defined.
Create ran char object is not defined. Okay. Yeah, because it's just an object. All right, so let's just ignore that. We'll keep going. And what we're going to do next is we'll create another variable and we'll assign it the value of an empty string. So we're just going to do let conditional string equals an empty string. So this is important because we're going to concatenate to this later. So you have to kind of give yourself something to play with first and something to work with.
What does concatenate mean?
Concatenate means add something to something that exists. So something exists, add something to it, and then add something to that, and add something to that, so it becomes longer than what it was originally.
Okay. Adding a tail.
So, for example, we're going to do condition string. Let's just do something here real quick. We're going to do a console log, and then we're going to do conditional. We're going to do conditional string plus equals. So plus equals is kind of a shortcut to saying conditional string equals conditional string plus whatever plus something else, okay? It's kind of like a shortcut of doing this. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually comment this out so we don't get an error anymore. So comment out the my char, and we'll come back to that maybe in a little while. And just do console log condition string equals condition string plus something. If you save it and go to Chrome, you see plus something and there's nothing before it because there's an empty string, right? Make sense?
I got an unexpected token error.
What line?
18.
So look at line 18. What does it say? Is there usually it's like a missing semicolon or something, or a missing parentheses.
I'm missing. I got too many parentheses. There we go. Found it. Save,
All right. So
refresh,
if you refresh, you go to Chrome, you see it says plus something, right? Because there's
and
nothing.
then the button was clicked.
Now, if we put something inside of this empty string, you put something there.
16 times.
If you put something in front of that empty string, now what's it going to say on the console?
What do you mean?
Well, what did it say before?
Plus something.
It says plus something, right? And there's nothing before the word plus,
oh, there's
right?
nothing in here, so we
Because
put
if you put something
in here.
in here, and if you go back, save it, refresh, now what do you see? Something plus something, right? So that's concatenation, my friend.
Something plus something. There's no space.
Then if there's no space, put a space before the letter P.
Oh, see, I thought you made a mistake there, so I took the space out. But you were doing that on purpose.
Yes, Captain.
Command S saves. So you don't have to run up here and do this every time. You can just do Command S.
No, because we haven't
here.
connected the button to this at all yet.
Refresh.
You could.
There we go.
You could make that happen.
And added the space.
Um,
And when button was clicked. Button was clicked. A bunch of times.
line 13. Comment it out. Is it commented out?
Tells you what lied. What code?
Where that was. That's pretty sweet. Huh?
Yes.
I don't know.
Use strict.
What's that? I don't have that.
I don't think it matters. So if we go back, it doesn't matter. So something, and so we're going to remove this, and instead of con string equals con string plus, that's too much code. So you just remove this and do plus equals, and it should be the same thing. And this is what coding is all about. You do something, get it working, and then you go back. It's called refactoring. So this is actually what we just did. It's called refactoring. We had some code, it worked. We changed the length or we deleted something, but it still works the same way. So that's called refactoring. Yes. Yeah, so say spite. So refactoring could be making it easier to read, removing things that are unnecessary, or adding things that are necessary, you know. But generally, it doesn't have to be just because to make it easier to read. But the word refactoring here, that could be an example of refactoring.
saving the CPU a lot of load.
Yeah.
So plus equals, I would imagine, is closer to machine language, maybe C code built into into HTML itself being simpler than having to read the code and then do the computation.
Well, there's a you have question?
No, I figured I had two spaces that started not three instead of one. I think the two spaces that
Okay, cool. So it works? Good. Well, when you ship, they do what's called compiling with different tools make it happen. So there's a compiler tool that would take all this code, and by the way, all this JavaScript is for us to read. It's for humans. And so what it will do is compile all the code into one long line and make it compressed in as little space as possible. It will change all of the variables into like letter name, like one letter names and everything, all these things that no way a human could read it. And so in that way, you really want to write the code for yourself to read and don't worry about saving CPU time or whatever like that, because there's other tools that can compress and make things faster like that, Yeah. The writing code is for humans, because the machine then takes all the code that we write, and then it's actually translated so that a computer can read it, right? So we got this, and what we're going to do, we're going to take a break in about 3 minutes, but let's see what's next. Yeah, that's coming from somewhere. Oh, I know. Yeah. So that's why that was given to us. Huh. So what we're going to do then is we're going to make this nice little conditional statement then. So, for example, we're going to do some little fun thing. We're going to do a conditional statement. Actually, let's take a break, and then we're going to do a conditional statement. So, should we stop it during the break?
Yeah, let's stop it. And we can, so pause the recording starting
And
now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop.